I think it takes a very special talent to be able to turn on the camera and record a full YouTube video in one take. Even if it's multiple takes or breaking it up into chunks, saying everything you want to say in a coherent and concise manner without a script is quite difficult, at least for me it is. In the first few videos of this channel, I tried to record off of a few general talking points. It resulted in a lot of failed attempts at putting together a proper sentence. Tons of uhs, ahs, weird noises, countless false starts, and what was bewildering was the fact that I swear I began hyperventilating at one point. The end results were still workable in the edit, especially since I cut pauses relatively aggressively, but I could never quite deliver the words I wanted to say in the manner in which I wanted to. So I bought a teleprompter, and I genuinely think it cut my recording time for these videos in half. So if you're like me and you find that trying to say everything off the top of your head is a barrier to recording, I'd highly suggest you stick around for the remainder of this video. So a couple of things that we'll be covering. First is which teleprompter I use and a quick tutorial of how to use it. After, I'll be sharing some tips you can apply when using a teleprompter. And to close, I'll share some of the major benefits that I've experienced, one of which is client related, so if you're a videographer and interested in purchasing a teleprompter, feel free to skip to that section. The teleprompter I use is Padcaster's Parrot Teleprompter for smartphones. In Canada, and at the time of this video, this runs you around $140 before tax. Inside the box comes a number of mounting rings ranging from 49mm to 82mm, which are used to screw the teleprompter onto your lens. Also included is a Bluetooth remote and the teleprompter mirror box tray thing itself. To be honest, I bought this one because I saw Gerald Undone was using it and didn't really think much further than that. It works extremely well, but I did go nearly a year without using it because the app had an update that unfortunately completely ruined the experience. Speaking of which, the app as it currently stands is perfect. It's free to download and use, and you simply upload plain text files, which are your scripts, to Dropbox, which syncs to the app. Open the app, tap on the script you want to start reading, press play, and you're good to begin recording. You can control certain settings such as the speed, and the font size, and the margins, which is something I'll talk about more in the tips section. When recording, you can control the script with the included Bluetooth remote. Start, stop, scroll up, down, faster, slower. I mentioned that the app was ruined for a large period of time after an update. You'll see here that if I'm reading from the script and make a mistake, I can just scroll up to the previous section and try again. The update made it so that if you scrolled up or pressed up more than 3 times in about a 3-second window, then the entire thing would start over. It led to this really cumbersome experience wherein you had to pause the script, press up 3 times, wait a few seconds, press up 3 more times, etc. And if you messed up and the script restarted, then it was a lot of scrolling down to wherever you were. And if you scrolled past the spot that you were at, good luck getting back up. Another annoying thing was that the script would start right away at the top of the screen. There was no lead time or space before you started seeing the text, so you needed to put in empty space manually in the plain text file itself. A minor thing, but an inconvenience. The entire experience just felt clunky, backwards, and impossible to establish any sort of flow while recording. This is why I went through a stretch of videos where I did just try to wing it rather than script it. But like I said, the most recent app update is flawless and back to what it was when I first purchased the teleprompter. Very smooth. I even went so far as to turn off auto updates in my app store just in case this happens again. Now I do wonder if other apps will work well with the Parrot Teleprompter as well, but most of them are paid options, so I mean, I would rather stick with this free one that works perfectly well. I noticed that more and more people are using teleprompters in their videos, not because they're posting any sort of behind the scenes, but because I can see their eyes scanning back and forth. Moreover, the voice is usually monotone and nonverbal cues feel very rigid. The easiest way to solve these issues is simply to approach recording your talking head exactly like how you would approach having a conversation in real life. For example, when engaged in conversations, I notice that I tend to not really lock eyes for extended periods. I'll also have short pauses when I'm trying to articulate a point I want to make. I'll make weird natural ums, hums, and uhs, glance into the other person's eyes, nod in agreement, look at something in the background quickly, look at my hands, use my hands while speaking, etc., etc. Now this probably varies from person to person, so apply your own conversational traits is how I would approach this. And in my opinion, I think this variation is a good thing since it also gives your personality a chance to come through naturally. So let's break this down into more actionable tips. Number 1, maintain a natural line of sight. By natural line of sight, I mean emulating where you would be looking at when you're in a conversation with someone. In my case, this is looking away periodically and also having a focus point in the teleprompter that I constantly return my gaze to, this kind of representing eyes. When I do this, I try to always keep my eyes on the middle of the lens or like a little bit off to the side. It's important to keep your eyes relatively locked on this spot to minimize the left to right movement of your eyes when you're reading the script. To make this easier, I would suggest using a larger font and then tighter margins so that the line of text is not too wide, reducing the amount of back and forth your eyes will be doing. In addition to this, practicing reading with your peripheral vision will also obviously be beneficial. And finally, I find that blinking helps to kind of reset your eyes if you're following the text too closely. For me, when I put all of this together, it's kind of like I look ahead for a split second, blink, and then say the words. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but anyways. Tip number 2. Format your script into pieces with spaces in between. These spaces will act as natural pauses that will cut smoothly in your edit and will also allow you to take multiple takes that are relatively consistent for each of these mini sections. By doing so, you'll improve the flow between your cuts. I also tend to record at least 3 takes per section. Although they can be relatively similar, I try to still introduce a little bit of variety in intonation and delivery. And by the third one, I feel like my eyes are less likely to follow the text. Since I've read it multiple times, none of the words catch me off guard. Tip 3. Use your hands. If you don't use your hands naturally while speaking, perhaps it would be better for you to disregard this tip, but if you do, definitely use them. The first reason this helps is that it distracts the viewer from your eyes kind of flitting back and forth, and second is that it also loosens up the remainder of your body, reducing that rigidity that's introduced when you're solely focused on reading. I noticed for me it also introduces some natural head movement, which feels and hopefully looks more natural. Tip 4. Cut in your head. This is somewhat similar to tip 2, but when writing and reading your script, think about the final edit. How can you break up sections of text so that it sounds natural? What kind of stylistic choices can you make in your delivery or cadence? These are questions I would consider right from when you begin writing your script. When reading, take note of how you end one of those mini sections of text. Imagine how that'll sound when you cut to the beginning of the next section. The more natural it sounds, the better the flow of your speech will be. The 5th and final tip is to improvise a bit. A script is never perfect. I usually write mine in 1 or 2 sittings, and I could spend more time editing them, and one day hopefully I will, but I do come across a few mistakes here and there while recording, or come across bits that I wish I had written differently. If it's a glaring error that's impossible to read without stumbling over my words, I'll go back and fix it. But otherwise, I'll just try to focus my eyes on the middle of the lens and improvise the line. Even if it's not entirely improvised, I'll at least just make tweaks on the fly. There are also times where I feel like one section will flow into the next much better if I add some sort of transition sentence. In this case, I'll pause the teleprompter, record a few takes of an improvised transition line, and then continue. Here too, an awareness of how you'll edit the final video is important. In this last section, I just wanted to point out a few benefits that I've noticed when using a teleprompter. First, using one to speak and then editing the resulting footage has taught me a lot about what speech sounds like. I'm not quite sure if that's the best way to articulate it, but I can definitely hear a bit more of a rhythm when listening to people speak, and this includes myself. What this means is it becomes easier to imagine how the way I'm speaking will be heard by others. And this information kind of helps in weird ways. For example, it helps me imagine what kind of music will complement the talking head, and the whole rhythm and cadence thing. I can just kind of imagine how this final video is going to sound. Second, as previously mentioned, the time it takes me to record a YouTube video has been shortened drastically. I would become so frustrated when trying to record something off the top of my head because nothing really seemed like it connected. Nothing felt right. It sounded good. This line, I'm trying to say it off the top of my head. I also have this stupid obsession with tangents, so writing everything down helps me organize and focus the points I want to make, at least to a certain degree. In the same vein, it also helps me cut down a lot of fluff. By focusing more on the script, I find that I can be more clear and concise since I'm cutting out these filler sentences and horrible jokes. Every sentence I leave in the final script has at least some sort of intent behind it. Third, it recently saved me a ton of time on a client shoot. The talent was unfortunately not prepared to speak in front of the camera and surprisingly did not have time to even go over the script before a shoot. I tend not to whip out the teleprompter for client shoots since it can be very unnatural, and like I've mentioned countless times now, you can see the subject's eyes reading the script. On this occasion, however, it quickly became apparent that it'd be worth bringing it out. Luckily, the subject was incredibly talented and we got through the video quickly with the teleprompter. I did see some stiffness in the final recording, but most of the video was B-roll anyways, so honestly, things turned out great. The main point is though, having experience with using a teleprompter myself was valuable when it came to asking someone else to use it for the first time. I had a lot of tips to share and a lot of feedback to give because again, I could imagine the final edit. So that's it. I really hope this helps some of you and thank you as always for your time. If you're interested in purchasing a Parrot Teleprompter, I've left a link in the description below. And if you'd like to see the written version of this video to refer back to in the future instead of the video, I'll have a link to that version as well. I don't know, lately I've been Googling things and I'm hit with this video and I can't watch it in that circumstance, so I'd rather have a text version instead. So that's what this is for. Like, subscribe, stay healthy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.